So thank you all for coming to the AGBI. We've got lots of new faces in the audience today. So we do have at the back, as Nicola mentioned, we've got our annual reports, which tells you a little bit more about what it is that we do. We are primarily a charity that supports professional visual artists who are unable to work due to injury or illness. That is our main goal and mission. This new sparkly building we moved into in September of 2022. And that's given us the capacity to help artists in other ways and give back more than grants. So we do these brilliant exhibitions and we do artist sessions and we can have chats with artists who might need support from us here in the building, which is new and wonderful. So tonight you're all here in the Holding Space exhibition, and on every single wall we have a piece by Steve Johnson. I'm going to introduce Steve, and he's going to probably hate me for it because I'm going to compliment him a little bit, but he is one of my favorite artists and a really wonderful friend of mine and the AGBI. We're going to have a chat tonight and we're going to ask some questions. I'm going to warn you all, as some of you might not know, he is very northern. So expect there to be some very dark humour, which he warned me about before we did this. So that's literally what he said to me downstairs. So be prepared. Told me to be prepared. I don't know what he's going to say. So let's.
Well, I had written 5 pages of script, which I'm not allowed now to read out.
You're allowed to read whatever you want, Steve. We're going to have a little chat, though.
And some of it was quite dark, but I'll probably steer away from that now.
I think I've known you long enough that your humour can be very dark and it's very entertaining. So you will be entertained. But we're going to kick off, and I'm going to talk a bit about the work. So we've got this piece here, which is a hospital corridor. And Steve, you describe your work as psychological models. So I would like you to explain that a little bit more for me.
Right. Well, I was interviewed for a catalogue essay in 2003. And at one point, I got quite annoyed because I was asked if I was making architectural models. And on the hoof and in anger, I sort of put the interviewer down and said, no, they're psychological models. And I thought that was quite clever. And to a certain extent, I still do, because to me, the idea of a psychological model is a way of concretizing a state of mind. But 2 weeks ago, when I was gifted the questions I was going to receive tonight, I thought, oh, I've got to look up what a psychological model is. And so I looked it up in the American Psychological Society, and it actually is, quote from their dictionary, a theory, usually a mechanism for predicting psychological outcomes intended to explain specific psychological processes. It is used by psychologists to analyze and predict behavior. So my use of that word is complete nonsense.
I think that's what artists do best, though, Steve, isn't it?
Pardon?
Isn't that what we do best as artists?
Nonsense?
Not total nonsense. We change words to mean what we want them to mean, in some extent. To some extent.
Yeah, I still think my definition's better.
What? I think your definition's better as well.
And besides that, I had to get some work back from Europe after the end of the transition period a couple of years ago, and I was told that the commodity code for architectural models exempts you from import duty.
Oh, that was after Brexit.
After Brexit transition period. So
Yeah.
on the docket, I put architectural models.
Perfect.
So you've got. I think it's wise to be prudent about definitions.
You are very prudent about definitions. So in these psychological models, there's no floor and there's no ceilings to the scene. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and your choices to not include those elements, ceilings and floors? There's no ceilings and floors in the scenes. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more? What does that mean to you?
Well, the main thing is that there's no walls.
Okay.
I think that the main point is missing, that there's no walls.
Okay.
Mainly because the work is made up of fragments. And funnily enough, no one ever sees that there's no walls there. So there's only space. There's only space here between this and that and that and that.
Yeah.
So all the various elements have nothing between them.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing which I find quite complex, there's some complexity here, is that the eye reads this as within the parameters of what's here, I think the eye reads it as a corridor in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But my brain knows that this is a wall in this building. This is a wall in this building. It's not. So there's confusion between what my eye sees and what I know. So the main thing that I'm sort of interested in here is that the illusion of a corridor in a hospital and the wall in the AGBI are difficult to separate.
Yeah.
And that's
that's what kind of brings me into this space of thinking I'm in a hospital space. When I look at this, it's so precise. So when you put this wall on, this piece of work on any wall, you're taken back to that emotional state that you could have been in a hospital or mental place. When I look at your work, how I interpret it is that I'm actually transported back to a space that exists in my memory.
Well, in my case, it's a corridor in University College Hospital, and but I wouldn't think that was terribly important.
Okay.
All I'm saying is that the fact that there's no walls there, which is difficult to kind of grasp, because people, if I drew that on a piece of paper and I had a piece of paper with the same corridor on it, it would kind of you wouldn't think much about the paper.
Yeah.
Particularly.
Okay. Thank you for sharing
but
that.
Regarding the regarding there being no flow, sometimes that's missed as well. And to my mind, the hanging elements here, the floor polisher and the angle poise lamp and the water cooler there, they're all graphically, it's a way of making gravity graphic.
Yeah.
Which in a way is more important than them not being a flow there.
Absolutely.
And in the illusionistic space of this drawn element and the real flow here, it's quite a drop.
Mm.
And I'm interested in trying to get across the idea of a vertiginous space,
Mm-hmm.
which is psychological, I suppose.
There you go. Back to that original.
So
your
basically,
definition.
because there are no walls or no floor and no ceiling here,
Mm-hmm.
it's not really an interior at all.
And you make all of this by hand. I just want to mention.
Oh,
that.
yes.
There's no machinery that goes into this.
Well, I've got machines, so I couldn't do this with a hammer.
You couldn't, right? But it's not you hand turn it all. It's not like on a. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, everything here, nothing here was turned, but the Anglepoise lamp, the lamp itself, was turned.
Okay.
Just the lamp itself. The fire extinguisher's there. It's the end of a broomstick. So I cheated a bit there, but it's just the right size, you know.
It's perfect.
But mostly, yeah, and it's all made by hand.
Yeah.
Although I didn't make the end of the broomstick.
But you transformed the end of the broomstick into an extinguisher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd just like to read something
Go ahead.
pertaining to what's three-dimensional and what's two-dimensional.
Yeah.
And what's an illusion and what isn't. Because the walls in this corridor are an illusion. There's no there. I was in Germany a couple of years ago with an exhibition, and in the same town there was a fantastic retrospective of Frank Steller's from the 1960s to the present. And I was walking around looking in amazement at these things, and there was quotes on each wall, and I wrote one of them down because it was just brilliant. And it does kind of pertain to, what's two-dimensional and what's three-dimensional. And this is a quote from Stella. I work away from the flat surface, but still don't want to be three-dimensional. That is, totally literal. More than 2 dimensions, but short of 3. So for me, 2.7 is probably a good place to be. And I would say I'm about 2.3.
Yeah. I love that. I really love that. Can we talk a little bit about the colour? Are you ready to talk about the colour? Or, as you mentioned to me earlier, the lack thereof?
Yeah, okay. So I've been making this series of work for 10 years now. Very different kinds of interior spaces. The first one was the council flat I live in, and it was the bedroom of the council flat I live in, and they're all 25% life size, so they're all interchangeable if I want to. But basically, so I made a wall of the bedroom, and it had curtains, a radiator, an air vent, an Anglepoise lamp, and a skirting board. And up until that point, I'd been painting work quite naturalistically, so different colours that were mimetic. So I painted the curtains a mustard yellow, which was the colour of the real ones, and I hated it. So I started to panic because I'd been making this damn thing for 6 weeks. And I thought, oh no. And it was the first one I made, so I thought, oh no, no. So I sprayed it out with a grey car primer. and I immediately knew that was right.
Okay.
So it was a happy accident, and I worked out eventually that I liked it because it created a surface of unfamiliarity. I like the council flat, but you know, but for the work itself, I wanted to be unfamiliar. And what it also did was that the woods I use are different for different shapes. So I might use walnut for something, gelatone for something else, which is yellow, walnut's dark brown, oak. They're all different colours. And I might use steel, brass, and aluminium in a piece of work. Like this has got steel and brass and aluminium in it.
Okay.
And they're all different colours. And I found that if I used matte enamel, it's just as good on wood as it is metal. And it gets rid of all of the different colours.
Okay.
So it puts emphasis onto the shape and form of something rather than the colour of it.
Right.
But after 5 years of grey, I saw some work by Katharina Fritsch, and the penny dropped. It took 5 years for the penny to drop, but it did drop, and it was that any monochromatic colour would do the same job as grey, as long as it was monochromatic. So it pushes it towards more like that. It becomes more abstract if it's just one colour. So it's kind of more like a thought form than a realistic, mimetic likeness.
Right. So, for example, you've used what you describe as a dirty baby pink for the care home window piece that we've got just over here.
Did I use the word dirty?
I think so. You said it wasn't a perfect baby pink.
No, it was darker than that.
Darker.
Because I just, yeah, I won't go there. But,
all right.
yeah, well, that was white, and then you wrote the press release, and that made it go pink.
You did. I know. You haven't made my job easy, have you? This is why we're friends, though, Steve. It'd be boring if it was easy.
I wasn't trying it on, but I thought when it was white, I wanted it to disappear into the wall.
Yeah.
Or kind of be less visible, because I started it during the pandemic.
Right.
And it's called low surface temperature, and that radiator is the kind of radiators they get in old people's homes, because they're not hot to touch. So anyway, and it was white, but then I decided to paint it pink. It could have been pastel blue, but I know I couldn't go into care homes at the time. I've been in them, but I couldn't go into one. So I looked at it. I looked at it all on the internet, and I noticed that pastel colours were very prevalent. So it was white, and then it became pink, and I thought pink was good because it insinuates dependency as a child.
Yeah.
And you know, if we make it that far down the line, we eventually become dependent.
Yeah.
So the colours tend to be, I mean, I didn't choose grey because I like the colour grey, and I didn't choose pink because I like pink, and I didn't choose this colour because it's similar to the logo and signage of the NHS. I mean, it was, but then I mixed it with some black and grey to dilute it. So I'm choosing colour for fairly. I'm not choosing colours because I like them.
Yeah. They all have a meaning behind them.
Pardon?
They all have a deeper meaning in your.
Well, I wouldn't say decoration isn't deep. It's just that it's not the way I think.
Yeah.
I'm from the north.
This is what you told me earlier.
Um,
Do you want to move on to talk about the bronze that we've got. There's a bronze on the bookshelf that is also made by Steve. And I made the mistake of saying that it was very different from the rest of his work.
Well, do you want to read the question?
The question is, there's a bronze on the bookshelf. It's very different from the rest of the work. And you also make works on paper sometimes. So there's a diversity to your mediums, and I'd love to know more about what draws you to making different types of work.
And my answer, which I'm going to read,
Okay.
which will take about 3 minutes, if I can find it. Oh, it's a Boris Johnson situation. Oh, damn.
Yeah, I think I've probably got it here. Here we go.
No, hang on, it's stuck to the back. Okay, I'm not convinced that it's different in content. In my case, not all states of mind can be expressed using the same media. You can't levitate a brick in the real world. So if I became obsessed by the symbolism of a floating brick, I'd have to make a painting or throw a brick in the air and photograph it. I had a thought 10 years ago that I wanted to acquire a real human heart, take it to a tattooist and have the words Mum and Dad tattooed on it. I was in recovery from treatment at the time. When I asked my consultant if she could get a heart for me, she said no, thankfully. If I ever choose to pursue that thought, it'll need to be a highly realistic painting, veins and all, but a high-fidelity photograph of a real heart with Mum and Dad tattooed on it would be better. There would need to be a conflation of real revulsion and sentimentality in equal measure, and I think a high-fidelity photograph would be the best way of achieving that. Maybe I could sculpt and paint one, and it would be near impossible to tell it was a fake using photography. I tend to think of sculpture as the little brother of two dimensions in that sense. I'm very careful to try and use object making for what it is best at. What sculpture is best at is that it inhabits the same space as the viewer in a very concrete way. It used to be said jokingly that sculpture was something you tripped over when stepping back to look at the painting. That's actually what's good about it. It is not a scene beyond the rectangular window of a photo, etching or figurative painting or computer screen. It was no accident that when Rodin placed his naked life-size bronze of Eve directly on the ground and down off a plinth, the viewing public were outraged. It was too close for comfort. They were standing on the same floor as a naked Eve. The bronze on the shelf, that's that one, was cast in 2000. It was the result of a 3-month residency in the Swiss Alps in a repurposed sanatorium for patients with TB. It had no sculpture workshops. I took pencils, watercolours and paper. The repurposing was minimal, and I slept in a tiled cell in a single bed for 3 months. The air was so clean, it wasn't necessary to blow my nose for the whole 3 months. That's true. What occurred to me quite quickly and a bit alarmingly was the recognition that habitual patterns of a life are contingent on place, parents, nationality, etc. It seems so accidental. The 36 bus route running through New Cross to my studio in London seemed much further away than 741 miles. I started making watercolours of altered patterns, things floating away from surfaces where they'd normally be, the dark brown spots from an overripe banana, the spots on a trout leaving its skin, and eventually internal organs floating away from a body. The bronze on the shelf belongs to that time. A sister piece is in the Science Museum, London. It was purchased after inclusion in an exhibition celebrating the centenary of the British Psychological Society. I don't think it's so different to the other works in the room. Without wars, the hospital, GP surgery and care home are exposed to external forces. And if your internal organs were outside the body, they'd be food for carrion crows.
Thank you. So Steve is actually one of the most thoughtful artists I've met when it comes to words. So thank you for sharing that. Steve's going to be hanging around till 8. Feel free to mingle. Oh.